Hello and welcome to Talk Me Healthy podcast with Sherry Keating from Diabetes Care Consulting. Today's topic, we're going to be talking about the North Central Massachusetts Faith-Based Community Coalition. And I've invited my good friend and guest, Kathleen Craigen, and she was the former administrative director and currently volunteers for the organization. So she's going to share all the good things that this organization is doing for our community. And I can't wait to talk to you about it. So welcome.
Thank you, Sherry, for having me.
Thank you for being here. So let's talk about you first, and then we'll talk about what the organization does. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So my name is Kathleen, as you mentioned. I am currently working full-time at Fitchburg State University as their recruitment and outreach coordinator for their School of Graduate, Online, and Continuing Education. It fits on a business card, I swear. In addition to that, I am also, as you mentioned, a volunteer for the North Central Massachusetts Faith-Based Community Coalition that I got involved with back in March when the coronavirus had struck and they needed a little bit more support. I am a Westminster, Massachusetts resident, newly home buying person back in November, which is very exciting. And I've also recently actually accepted a position at the Department of Developmental Services as a Human Services Coordinator and will be transitioning out of my role at Fitchburg State. So,
well, first of all, congratulations, my friend. I hadn't heard the news, so I'm so excited for you.
It is very new news, so we're very excited.
Oh, that is awesome. And you have a beautiful new home as well.
Thank you.
So I went through that process with you. So I haven't got there yet because of COVID, but I will get there eventually. So yeah, so I'm thrilled for your new position. So let's talk a little bit about the North Central. This is a mouthful, just like your position at Fitchburg State, but North Central Massachusetts Faith-Based Community Coalition. So how did you get involved and how did you hear about this organization?
Sure. So I typically just refer to it as the coalition because that's just easier. So
now you tell me.
I have to say the whole mouthful.
You didn't tell me that at the beginning.
Now we know. Well, even the acronym's too long. NCMFBCC, it's still too long. So the coalition is an organization that I was introduced to back in March. I had actually went with a group of community resident leaders at the time when I was living in Fitchburg with New View Communities to a leadership institute in Chicago. And we had decided at that point that we were going to apply for grant funding to humanize the homeless population in our city. It's something that we all felt very strongly about. And so our friend Francisco, who works at New View, had introduced us to Emily, who is the executive director at the coalition. And she was able to educate us on the work that she does in terms of serving the homeless population in Pittsburgh. And it was pretty instantaneous about my passion for the project as well and wanting to get involved. And then a couple months later after that introduction is when the coronavirus had hit. And our group that had went to Chicago had decided that we needed to adjust our grant funding a little bit to adhere more closely to the work that Emily was doing with the coalition because it was much more integral to make sure that we had immediate resources available for this population. And so the coalition is a program right now, their strongest program as part of the entire nonprofit is what they had previously been calling breakfasts at the Y. And it has expanded into something a little bit larger, which we can certainly talk more about. But essentially their mission right now through that program is to feed people who are hungry, particularly in Fitchburg, but also we are serving people in Lunenburg and Leominster because the nonprofit, really the hope is to serve all of North Central Massachusetts. And so we are feeding people, primarily homeless people who are hungry and struggling to get those resources to them right now. And not only are we giving them food, but we're actually giving them hot, warm, healthy meals.
I like to hear that since I'm a diabetes educator. So first of all, a couple of questions came to my mind. How does somebody who is homeless find out about this organization and the work that you're doing? And where is the food coming from? And who is preparing them? And where is it being prepared? And how do they get there?
Yeah, so that's 10 questions, not one.
I know.
I am happy to attempt to address all of them. So first and foremost, this program had started, this breakfast program had started over 3 years ago with the intent to bring people in and give them shelter as well. So we are based out of the YMCA on Wallace Street in Fitchburg, and a branch that has been super dedicated to the work that we're doing and have been one of our largest supporters throughout the entire process. And so originally when the program had started pre-COVID, we were bringing in about 30 people on a Sunday and giving them a hot meal. They'd have access to the showers so that they could clean up. There'd be a small clothing closet so that they could exchange dirty clothes for clean clothes. And they'd be able to get a hot cup of coffee and just companionship through other people who were there and volunteers. And for a large amount of time, it had just been word of mouth among that population of people within the community. And then, of course, word of mouth through the volunteers who were sharing that information. So from there, after COVID, the need became greater, and we needed to increase our capacity. And so the grant funding we actually used to stipend an outreach specialist who has been going out into the streets and working directly with this population, bringing food to them if they can't make it to us, introducing himself and the organization as a resource, and notifying people as often as possible what types of food that we have, what time it is, what time they can come pick it up, and all of that. So we actually went from serving, in the last couple of months, the organization went from serving 200 meals a month to serving 1,200 meals a month.
That's when there's a will, there's a way, right?
Absolutely.
Wow.
And so we went from just doing the breakfast on Sunday to doing the breakfast on Sunday and a spaghetti supper on Wednesday. And of course, those have to be to-go meals now, pick up, delivery, to go because of COVID. But in addition to both of those meals, we're also attaching on a lunch bag. So they get a sandwich, a fresh fruit, a juice box, granola bars, breakfast bars, and things like that in a bag, in addition to their warm meal that's coming in styrofoam. And to answer your question, or sometimes styrofoam, I should say, but to answer your question about how we're getting food, where we're getting food, we definitely have a variety of different resources that are flowing through the organization at this point. We've established some really great relationships with local agencies such as Roots Natural Food Store, the Gardener's Spot, Strong Style Coffee, and I know I will probably miss some of the names of our partners, and I apologize if I do. But the City of Fitchburg has been supportive with some funding opportunities. The Community Foundation specifically, the United Way, their Combat Hunger Initiative has supported some meals for us that we've been able to give out. And it's just been a really incredible experience of all of these people coming together. But to supplement all of those pipelines, so to speak, we are actually, we're basically a group of 11 churches and congregations that are all contributing in a variety of ways. And so if we recognize that we're running low on pasta sauce, we might reach out to our pastors at a local congregation to notify them that we could really utilize a donation like that. And so some of our partners will bring their people together to contribute in those ways as well. And then of course, bringing in just individual donations, people like yourself who are always asking, what can I do to help? We definitely get pasta and sauce, especially pasta and sauce, because, well, actually for a while that was hard to get because everybody was buying them because of COVID.
That's right, yeah.
But for the most part, those are some of the typical donations that we see come through. And then the people cooking the food are actually our volunteers. We have people who are Serve Safe certified in the kitchen that are cooking and packaging our meals, and then we have a separate group of people who are tying them up and delivering them to people at the door.
So it takes a village.
It absolutely does. And we just recently started creating more structure around a volunteer coordinator position. My friend Desiree has filled that role, and she's been doing an absolutely phenomenal job, but it is certainly a lot of tracking and asking and being able to be flexible when people can't come. And we also do have to monitor how many people are in and out of the building, just volunteers in general, because of the restrictions and or guidelines and regulations for the YMCA and then mask state, because we want to make sure that we're being safe for them and for
So you're actually using the YMCA still through COVID? It's been open?
balance.
I think we had a little internet freeze there. So I think I missed the last thing that you said, but I asked, are you using the YMCA building? Is it still open during COVID?
Yeah, so originally the YMCA had not been open until they were able to reopen to provide childcare for our first responders, which was an emergency program, and they only kept a few of their staff to hold on to that program and to also keep their doors open in a way. Our program was another program that helped them to stay open, and they were very supportive. Right now, we're flexing around their new schedules because there are programs still running, or I should say running again back at the YMCA now. And so we had to shift our start times for dinner, for example, a half hour later to accommodate their kiddos being picked up during the time that for a little while we had actually been serving. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, so they are open. They have stayed open for us. We did not miss a beat. We actually were able to serve every expected Wednesday and every expected Sunday because the Y was able to open and to accommodate us being there.
That is amazing. Did you ever have to turn anybody away because there isn't enough?
No, we've never had that problem, especially just food in general. There was probably maybe one time that I can remember where a couple had come after what we designate as the time frame. And so we had already given away all of the food because we typically do within the time frame. So we were able to, however, still send them home with food. So we have all those non-perishable items or fresh fruits or juice boxes, water bottles, all that stuff that we can still send home with somebody who comes and inquires for it, maybe even if we don't have a hot meal ready for them. But the odds of that happening at this point are pretty slim because we'll make a lot of extra and then we'll give whatever we can at the door, and then our outreach specialists take the remainder and bring it out into the streets and deliver them.
I love this so much. You had mentioned they could take a shower before, and then you said you give them other things. So can they still take a shower, and what other things besides food are you giving them?
Yeah, so as of right now, we're not welcoming them in the Y for the showers just because there's a lot of restrictions on how people are coming in and out. Last I knew, the YMCA even had a schedule and like you had to request an appointment basically to come and use their facilities if you were a member. And so unfortunately, it's just not as open as we'd want it to be right now. But we are trying to do what we can to provide individuals with things that are pretty necessary, especially as it relates to hygiene. So we had a lot of requests for, men's shaving cream, razors, deodorants, certainly even shampoos, conditioners, soaps, especially, and things of that nature. But we also certainly do try to do socks, underwear, ponchos, blankets, umbrellas, even when we have donations come through of any type of clothing articles, especially in the winter, sweatshirts, jackets. We do what we can to collect those sort of things, and our outreach specialists are really good at recognizing what people need and are able to distribute those sort of things accordingly.
Now, do you take, a lot of people have been going through their houses and they've been, cleaning closets and all of that. Do you take used clothing items, or are you looking for new clothing items?
At one point we had. Unfortunately, right now, because of COVID, we have to be pretty strict on how we're monitoring what's coming in, especially as it relates to used items. And so right now, we're trying to put a little bit of a hold on that until we can find the structure to quarantine those items and disinfect them properly before distributing them, because we want to make sure, again, we're taking all of our volunteer and the people that we serve's health into consideration first and foremost. And so unfortunately, right now, we don't have the processes set up to accept those items, but I do want to consider taking those things on a case-by-case basis. So if someone had something that they thought our individuals could could benefit from, I would, or any of the volunteers in the program would likely have a conversation with them just to identify what it is that they have, and we can identify whether or not there's a large need for it, and then we can take a disinfecting quarantine process accordingly.
Because I'm just sitting here thinking I have a chest full of blankets that just sit in the chest that I would love to donate. So we'll have that conversation for sure.
Yeah, and that's a great idea. And especially when winter comes, that's one of the
Yes.
biggest items that people are asking for.
Yes, and I have a closet full, so we will definitely have a conversation. So how many volunteers are there, and how does one get involved as a volunteer?
It's a great question, and it's funny you ask, because our summer newsletter is actually focused on thank you for our volunteers and a little bit of information for people who may be interested in volunteering. So at this point, we have, I would say, close to 50 volunteers who have been in and out at some point in time. Active volunteers right now, I would say, is closer to that 25 number. But admittedly, I haven't been physically at the program like some of my friends and colleagues have to kind of get a better gist of what that is. But the list of volunteers that I have is pretty lengthy and really exciting. But to become a volunteer, basically right now we're just asking that people email or find a way to contact Desiree, who is our new volunteer coordinator. And we do have, not many people have chosen to use it yet, but we do have a Google form that's kind of like a survey that's posted on our Facebook page, which I can give you the link to so that that can be shared with everybody as well.
Absolutely.
So there is a Google Form survey for new volunteers on our website, or on our Facebook page, that people can access as well. Those, I would say, are the two primary ways for people to get involved in terms of volunteering.
Okay, that's great. Now, did I hear that you had some sort of celebration or something coming up, or something going on in October?
Yes, we actually have two very exciting things going on in October. So we are celebrating, the coalition as a whole is celebrating the 10th anniversary of the nonprofit having been launched. And
That's awesome.
I know, it's extremely exciting, and we have found two ways to celebrate that. The first one is going to be on Saturday, October 24th, is actually going to be a fundraiser for the organization that is co-sponsored by Roots Natural Food Store in Leominster. They are going to be making lasagna dinners with salad and dessert that people can pick up and enjoy for a cost associated with it, which will be their donation and contribution to our program. Those details are still being ironed out right now, but rest assured they will be posted either in our next newsletter, well, I guess both in our next newsletter and on our Facebook page. So
I recommend them to do carrot cake for the dessert, because I love those carrot cake cupcakes.
Are they fantastic?
Yes, they're fantastic. And you didn't hear this from the diabetes nurse.
No, not at all. No. And I'm sure they're one of the healthiest carrot cakes around anyway. So
I know, seriously. So I will definitely be going to that on Saturday, October 24th. So send me a flyer for sure. And what's the other?
That's going to be from 12 to 3.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
All right.
And then the second way that we will be celebrating, we're going to be hosting a large Zoom conference virtually and inviting all of our volunteers, friends, supporters, churches, pastors, congregations. Everybody is invited to come to a structured Zoom session where we will be going over the history of the organization, where we're at right now. We're going to have some guest speakers, some photos, slide presentations. Again, definitely still being ironed out, but something that we have a committee set aside to work on. So we're very excited for that as well.
And that's October. Do you have a date picked out yet or no?
Saturday, October 31st.
Okay, so everything, and is that the anniversary month? Is that why everything's in October? Is that your 10th anniversary month?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I have a personal question. What for you has been the most fulfilling about being part of this organization? And can you share, two questions, and can you share a story about somebody that you made a difference in the life of during your volunteering or being the assistant director?
Yeah, absolutely. Those are two very great questions, and I am certainly happy to share. So personally, the best parts about this program have been able to contribute to my community during a time where a lot of people are feeling helpless in ways that they can contribute. I think having been locked in our houses for weeks and months at a time was an eye-opening experience for many people, in that they knew people were struggling in different ways, maybe not knowing in what capacity, but knowing that there is definitely a need that needs to be fulfilled, and gaps in people's services or anything of that nature that need to be filled. And for me, being able to take the time to commit to this organization and help them find funding and to help them find more volunteers and to bring more structure to the organization and create their first ever newsletter to be able to tell the world about all of the amazing work that they're doing, that was a way that I felt that I could contribute during such a crazy, wild time. And that to me was likely the most fulfilling part. In terms of a story, it's interesting because it's a very bittersweet story that really brings light to the severity of the conditions that these people are facing. I had one of the first days that I had went to do outreach. It was actually my first and only day that I went to do outreach. I went with my friend Felix, who is the outreach coordinator there now. It was when I had first started with the organization. I had went out and we had just met a gentleman for the first time. He had never heard of the organization before. He had never come and got food from us. And we met with him under the bridge on Water Street in Fitchburg. And we had probably told him a dozen times that he had to come on Wednesday at 4:30 to the Y to get a spaghetti supper. And I was convinced that we weren't going to see him because it wasn't clear to me that he was understanding and comprehending and in the mental headspace to be able to understand exactly what we were expressing to him. And sure enough, next Wednesday at 4:30 at the YMCA, this gentleman was in line to get food. And he recognized me and he recognized Felix and we recognized him and we welcomed him with joyous big smiles and lots of warm, healthy food for him. And so that was a really great experience. And where this story ends and why I say it's bittersweet and really brings light to the severity of this is that not too long ago, we received word that he had actually drowned in the Nashua River.
Oh.
And we, as an organization, and the people that do outreach for us, were likely the last people to see him. And the food that we gave him was probably the last meal that he ever had. And so for me, it is those types of stories, as sad as they are, that actually do bring peace to the work that we're doing. Because we don't know what people are going through and we can't anticipate what people are going to experience. And for us to have been able to provide him with that companionship, camaraderie, full belly, etc., for the time that we did know him was something that was truly special. And so for me, that's one of the most impactful stories that I have of having been engaged. And there are so many more that I'm happy to share with anybody who will listen, but that's the first one that comes to mind for me.
I wanted to cry because I can sense your connection with him and then getting the news, but you're right. You're like the light in someone's darkness and you're doing kind of God's work. And so it's awesome. I mean, thank you for everything that you're doing and for this organization and what they're doing. Most of us don't understand what people that are homeless are going through on a day-to-day basis, and you just sharing that story and bringing light to that. I hope people who are listening to this understand that they could be somebody's light in somebody's dark time. And this is a dark time for a lot of people, not just homeless people. So, we can all make I posted something on Facebook last week about a story about a teacher and how she impacted. I don't know if you saw it because we're Facebook friends, but it was a story about how a teacher kind of judged this little boy, and then she went back and read his history, and then how it changed her point of view, and how she ended up mentoring him, and how she became like his second mom when his mom passed away. And it was just such a beautiful story. And I wrote on my Facebook post how I want to be the person, that kind person that does something and changes somebody's life. So this, what you're sharing in this organization, is changing people's lives. And it's those little things that we can do every day that we can make a big difference in somebody's life. And we never know if that's going to be their last meal or their last pair of warm socks or their last blanket. Or so I just think what you're doing and your organization is doing is amazing. And I'm sure viewers out there want to get involved. So how can we get involved? Is there something we can do now to donate something? What are your needs now? How can we get involved in, and how can we reach who we need to reach? And how do we get this newsletter?
Yeah, absolutely. All great questions. And you're right, there are people who are chomping at the bit to get involved. There are people who are not as comfortable coming in and physically volunteering with us, but rest assured we have plenty of options for anybody. Of course, first and foremost, the biggest way that people can contribute is financially. We can arrange Venmo. We are in the process of creating a GoFundMe account, and we accept cash and check donations as well. I will send you the contact information for those. Our email address is just our acronym, NCMFBCC@gmail.com, which I'll send you as well. If somebody wants to get the newsletter, they can just email that address and say that they'd like to be put on our contact list, and I'm happy to do that. I can send them historical newsletters as well. I believe we're on our third or fourth one at this point, so to see the progression of the few of them is really cool to see. So I'm happy to send multiple. They are also available on our Facebook page, which is another great way to reach us. Via Facebook Messenger is totally fine as well. That is the second way that somebody can get involved. As we know, word of mouth and sharing, especially through social media, and the power of social media is one of the greatest ways that we can continue to make an impact and continue to establish more partnerships and collaborations with other people, with other agencies, with other people who need to be served. And so to come and follow us on Facebook, to share our content, to email a friend if you've thought of them by listening to today's podcast, and encourage them to get involved in some way, telling your friends and family about what you heard, even you, Sherry, taking the time to allow me on your podcast and to have people listen. These are all great ways. So just share however you can is the second greatest way that somebody can get involved. As we talked about earlier, volunteering as well. They can go to our Facebook page and find the volunteer application. They can find the newsletter that will have Desiree's contact information. They can reach out to me directly. They can, any way that they can just get in touch with the coalition or anybody here, we will find a way to get them in a place that makes sense for them in terms of being able to volunteer. Another great way, like you were mentioning as well, would be to contribute any non-monetary items. So like we were saying, you know, men's socks are huge, men and women's underwear, hygiene products, anything like that, especially brand new from the store, are things that we welcome for donations, because we do have the outreach specialists who are really great at figuring out where those need to be. And then of course also the donation of food items. So if you're at the grocery store and you realize you have an extra few dollars and you can pick up an extra jar of pasta sauce or an extra box of pasta, we will gladly take them. And there are a variety of ways that you can get them to us. You can drop them off at the Y while we are there. You can drop them off at the Executive Director's house while we're not there. You can mail them to us from Amazon. You can, we have all sorts of options. And again, case by case basis, however somebody wants to contribute, we want to work with them and figure out how they can get involved, because it's just as important for people who want to get involved as it is to serve the people who need our services. Absolutely. Because everybody's blessings come in a different form.
That's right.
And I think we have the capacity to bless many different people in many different capacities through the work that we do.
I believe you're 100% correct. my last question, gift cards, can we purchase a gift card like to a grocery store? And then do you have shoppers that go out, volunteer shoppers, or Amazon gift card or something like that?
Yep, absolutely. Any type of gift card we will certainly accept. We will find a way to use them. We will find a way to, even if you gave multiple $5 gift cards, we could find individuals that may need them, especially to food places that you can only buy food with that gift card is really important because that's the mission of the organization. Or to that program specifically, I should say. So definitely we will accept gift cards. We do have people who are doing shopping. A lot of our donations come through, but there are other, especially the perishable items like bread, even butter and eggs. And there's some things here and there that we definitely have to make the grocery store trip for. And we do Market Basket, Hannaford, BJ's. We definitely go to a variety of different places to find the best deal. So we're getting the best bang for our buck so that we can make sure that we're serving the most people with the least amount of funds.
Well, you know what? I have learned so much, and I am so excited to become involved. So we need to have a conversation because I want to become involved. That story just touched my heart so much, and I'm feeling called to do something about it. So we need to have a conversation. So we will definitely touch base. And I just want to, again, thank you for being my guest. I want to, again, thank you for the amazing work that you're doing and the difference that you're making in the lives of homeless people in North Central Mass. And viewers, you know what? We can all do something. It takes a village, and if we are not in that situation, we are grateful. So we can help people that are in that situation by just doing something small. You know, we can all do something small. We're going to make a huge impact. And I'm all about making the difference in the lives of millions. That's what I try to do with diabetes. And so I think that we could all chip together and work together and help out with this organization. So again, the organization is North Central Massachusetts Faith-Based Community Coalition, or the Coalition. And I will be sharing this with everybody. I will have all the ways to contact so that they can get involved. And viewers, thank you so much for tuning in again, whether it's the show or the podcast. And thank you for everything that you're doing to make a difference in the lives of many people, and you as well. And good luck with your new job. I'm so excited for you, Kathleen, and I can't wait to hear everything about it.
Thank you for having me, Sherry. This has been a wonderful experience.
Oh, you're so welcome. And viewers, I hope you tune in next time. But until then, remember to live your best life every day, starting today. This is Sherry Keating, Talk Me Healthy podcast and show in Diabetes Care Consulting. And everyone stay safe.